Hey, how's it going, everyone? So what am I working on now? I am working on a 17 Ford F-150 Ecoboost with 166,000 miles. Thank you, Joshua, who he's a fan of the channel, and so he dropped it off with me to take a look at it. Joshua says that he's got an issue with lack of power or loss of power, and occasionally he'll get like some kind of a hissing type noise from the brake pedal. With vacuum brake boosters, sometimes if they start going bad, you can get like a hissing type sound on the inside of the vehicle. I'm stepping on the pedal now. I don't actually hear anything. So, but I mean, that could change when driving. So I'm going to take this thing for a ride, and I'm going to see what it does, and see what happens. It's a very clean truck. I will say that. It's like amazingly clean. I was kind of surprised when I got in and I saw 166,000 miles. Obviously, this truck is taken care of. So let's take this for a ride. Let's see what it does. Obviously, performance generated type stuff, you're not going to be able to tell with me driving, what's going on. But let's do that. I got a scanner hooked up to it right now, and it's running a code scan on everything, and then we're going to see what that is. But let me go for a road test first. All right, so the scan completed, which is funny because it's showing no codes. However, this thing has got a bad misfire. I don't know if you could hear that, but it's not. It flashed a check engine light for a short period of time, but now the light's going out and it's not doing anything. I'm just about to cross the border to go to my testing facility in Mexico, and what I'm going to do is once I get there, then I'm going to just look at the information on the scanner. So hang on a second. Oh, there. You see the check engine light flashing. Under load, it's flashing and misfiring. Remember the F-150 with the transmission issue that turned out to be that solenoid? This is not a transmission related issue. This is a misfire. But the reason I'm mentioning that truck is that truck had a bad misfire that the customer interpreted as the same problem as before. So I got a funny feeling we have a coil going bad or a plug going bad on this one. But let me get to a point here where I can stop. Safely, like I am. So here I am, secret testing facility. But here, I'll show you this. Oops. Engine code 0. Transmission code 0. And right now, check engine light is off. Okay. Control interface module, front. That's interesting. Air intake damper position sensor. Circuit short or ground, or circuit short to ground or open. And it's a current DTC. If I am not mistaken, that has something to do with the airbox itself. And I've heard of these, I could be wrong, I'm going to have to check this when I get back to the shop, but I've heard of these creating issues with lack of power, believe it or not. Okay, so all of that's good. Nope, I'm not going to do that. Let's go to engine, because I don't want to clear any data out by possibly cycling the key. Let's look at misfire data. Cylinder number 4. See that? So, this is the V6, so cylinder number 4. It's a driver's side bank, first cylinder. Alright, could have a similar situation as to that other F-150, which that one spark plug had heavy carbon tracking on it. So, I'm going to get it back to the shop and look at that. And actually, I just realized this truck has the 10-speed automatic. And look at that. First gear, second gear, third gear, all the way up to 10th gear. Like a lot of times, from what I understand, they'll shift first, third, fifth, seventh, depending on the way you're driving. So, but pretty neat actually. The first time I ever paid attention to the 10-speed. All right, let's get back to the shop and let's take a look at this and see if we can't figure out what's going on. Oh, and real quick too, I had the AC on and the blower was going, but I don't hear anything from the pedal. I'm trying to manipulate the pedal as much as possible. A certain amount of noise is normal, like that. But if you're ever pressing down on a pedal and you hear a whoosh, and you're holding it in a steady position, and you can still hear like a gushing type noise or a hissing type noise, then you have some kind of a leak. Usually a vacuum leak. It only works if you have vacuum style brakes, vacuum brake booster. If you have a hydraulic brake, they have all of those have a tendency to make some type of a gushing noise because it's the fluid actually passing through, because they use fluid pressure from the power steering system. All right, so let's get back to the shop. All right, so we're in the shop. We've got to take this engine cover off here, because I'm going after the Misfire first, because I'm confident that's his issue. That other code, I believe, has to do something with the airbox. And it has a K&N filter, which I believe... Let me research the code first. But sometimes you got to be careful with K&N filters, because they can actually skew mass air meters if they're over-oiled. They're great filters, don't get me wrong. I would use one myself, but you got to be careful you don't over-oil it. But anyway, let me get that engine cover off. And to get the engine cover off, it's got a couple of 10mm headed nuts right there. Get those off to get the cover itself off. All right, so let's get to this. And what I'm going to do is just put you in here. So hopefully you can watch what I'm doing. Will that work? I think that'll work. All right. Like I said, you got to take this cover off. Now be careful when you're working on a motor that you've just had on a road test, because it can be hot and you don't want to burn yourself. That would make for a bad day. So this comes up and out. So we're just going to put this on the floor over here. And let's see. So this is number 4 over here, the first one here. Can you see what I'm doing? Let's see. Yeah, you should be able to see that. Okay. All right. So I've told you before, these connectors have like a little tab that you can push over, and they should come out reasonably easy. I'm pretty sure you probably can't see that on there. Let me disconnect this sensor connector here. There we go. Just want to get that out of the way so it's clear. Now the coil here, hopefully you can see that. Oops. Sorry, let me look to see if you can see my vantage point. You can't see everything, can you? I'm trying to set this up nice so you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, that don't really help. Yeah, none of it's very helpful, is it? Okay. Oh, that actually works right there. Problem is everything's aluminum on these trucks, so it's like trying to find a good spot to connect to is difficult. So I'm just disconnecting the coil here. I'm going to get an 8mm because we're going to take that coil out. Just grabbed an American socket. I mean, a 5/16 would work, but that wasn't a 5/16. I know you can't see me, but you can hear me. All right. Coming back on a picture in a second here. And my battery's going, oops, my battery's going dead in my Milwaukee. We're going to pull the coil out. And what we're going to do is we're going to inspect this coil. Can you still see what I'm doing there? Yes, you can. So we're going to inspect the coil. Look around the boot here. Look for any burn marks. Don't really see anything that concerns me. All right, now let's pull the plug out. I don't know what size plugs those are. They could be the 5/8 or they could be the 9/16. I happen to have the 9/16 right here. And no, I think it's the 5/8. All right, I gotta go get the 5/8 because I have that over at the other car that I'm working on. Hang on. Okay, I'm back. So I got the 5/8 extra deep socket. All right. So let's inspect this plug here. And it don't look terrible. Don't look terrible at all. They're actually not that old. NGK iridiums. Hold on. Oops, sorry about that. See a little something here that's a little concerning. Hang on a second. Let me move the camera to a spot where I can see. Hang on a second. Okay, so I wanted to get a really good look at the plug, and I was seeing like that little mark there, and I was just curious if it could have been something. And I don't see anything. So these plugs and those coils are actually not all that old. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this plug, and I'm going to stick this plug in the number 5 hole, and I'm going to take the coil and stick it in the number 1 hole. And the reason for that is this way I can see if the misfire moves. If the misfire doesn't move, then I know I have an injection issue. Doubt it, just because of the way it feels. It feels like it's ignition related. When it's a hard hit like that, like da 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 da, like that, usually it's ignition related. If it's a coil, very rarely will it be like that. I mean, if it's a injector, very rarely will it be like that. It's usually a softer hit, a softer misfire. So that's why I'm kind of leaning that way. Plus, the reason for switching a plug to another cylinder and a coil to a different cylinder is this way, you know, hey, if the misfire goes to cylinder 1, then I know it's the coil. If the misfire goes to cylinder 5, then I know it's the spark plug. So I would hate to just switch the coils and have to come back in and then switch plugs and then road test it again. At least this way I get it all done in one shot. So let me set you up so you can actually watch what I'm doing. All right, so let's get back with this here. There's a little tiny lock on the coil. You have to release that to release the connector. I tell you what, man, this is a super clean truck. I've seen trucks with 30,000 miles that are not this clean. I'm actually very impressed with how well this truck has been kept, maintained. All right, so there's that. I try to keep everything separated so I don't misplace it. Well, not misplace it, so I don't like mix it up. All right. Oh, not loose enough yet. And the motor is quite hot. I know the camera's probably moving. It's because I am on the, my body is actually resting against the airbox housing here, and or my arm is rather, and the camera's resting on there. This plug looks fine. So we're going to stick this here into the number 4. You don't have to go nuts tightening them. I know somebody had mentioned that they were changing oil, and when they went to go tighten a drain plug, I came in their head, into their head, and they could hear me saying, "Okay, you don't have to go crazy tightening this." So it means I'm doing my job. If you guys are remembering things like that. Hopefully this audio is coming out good. I'm trying different things here. Okay. So now, let's put that coil back in its correct spot. Connect the connector. Oops. Don't touch the sides, Butterfingers. Anybody remember that? The game Operation. All right. So now this coil can go in this hole. So remember, this coil was originally in 1. Resting my arm on the overflow tank, or the expansion tank for the radiator, and it's hot. Here again, you don't have to go bananas tightening these, because you're going into a brass bushing or a brass thread cert that's in plastic. Where did I put the other coil? Right here. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to road test it without the engine cover on, to see because if I have to take it back off, at least this way I don't have to, or if I have to come back and work in the motor, I don't have to take it off. So we're going to take these nuts out of here so I don't lose them. I had the nuts on top of the battery, if you couldn't see that. The nuts that hold that cover on. And let's actually take this thing for a ride now. All right, so I'm back in the truck. I'm going to take it for a road test to feel the misfire, and then I'm going to look to see where it is on the data. Do not clear the codes. Explain that in a second. Okay. All right, let's go for a road test and see how this stuff changes. If it does change. Now, we'll have to block wood underneath the wheel. It's a little 2x4, I just have to roll over it. I did that only because I always leave vehicles in neutral in the shop in case I need to roll them forward or backwards a little bit. And I do that for the period of time that I'm working on them. I always put a block of wood underneath the wheel. This way the truck doesn't roll while I'm trying to work underneath the hood. Now the reason for not clearing the codes is you clear the codes, you clear out all the data, like that misfire data that showed the 145 there. Sometimes on vehicles, Fords and Chryslers especially, you could wind up with a misfire after clearing it and it'll never show up. So this way it should show up if, you know, on a different cylinder, or it should count up from that point on that cylinder. That's why I don't clear anything out. So if you had a check engine light, just leave it on for right now while you're in the testing phase. All right, I'm gonna go up on the road here. Okay, so I could definitely feel the misfire. So obviously it didn't go away. I didn't change any parts. I just relocated them. I moved them around. So once we cross the border and we get back to our secret testing facility in Mexico, we'll look to actually see what happened. Another thing too, if you have a scanner, I always had a problem with this. I actually yelled at a few teachers about this too. They would teach us in school and they would show us in the car and they would lay the scanner right over top the steering wheel. And I'm like, do you have any idea how dangerous that actually is? What if you got into an accident? If you got into an accident and your airbag was deploying, even if you're sitting at a traffic light and somebody crosses over and hits you head on, which it happens, and you got the scanner right there while you're in traffic, think about it. Think about the dangers that can create. So if you ever notice, I'm like in a parking lot or whatever when I'm doing this, I don't have the scanner in front of the steering wheel. I do when I'm in a parking lot and there's nobody else around. But like right now when I'm driving, I'm driving here and the scanner's sitting down there. I got one more street, just crossed the border, and it is misfiring. Oh, and yep, there it goes. Check engine light's flashing, but it never sets a light on, as far as I know. I could be wrong, but ooh, it's misfiring. All right, so what do you think it's going to be? Cylinder 1, same cylinder, or cylinder 5? So cylinder 1, 4, or 5? I'm going to say it's 1. I'm going to say it's the coil that's the problem. All right, let me just get to a point where I can turn around so the sun glare's not killing me. Dun, dun, dun. All right. Drum roll, please. No communication. What happened? Did I knock the connector out? No communication. I must have knocked the connector out. Hang on a second. Connector's down there. I might have kicked it with my knee. Okay, let's see. Cylinder 1, 59. Cylinder 4 didn't change, stayed at 145. And cylinder 5 got 0. So, there we go. It's a defective coil. Now, Joshua mentioned that he put all new coils on it. So, the question is, I know with me, I have a tendency, if something is not good like that I would put all new coils on, but these coils are all brand new. If this thing had 166,000 miles on it and it had original coils in it, I would highly recommend doing all the coils, because usually you got one going out, another one going out, another one go out, and then so on and so on and so on. You get the domino effect. But this, since they were all just changed the one, defective one in the package. If you have another one that goes bad, then you may want to consider changing all of them. But that's going to be my recommendation. So, all right, let's get back to the shop. Now, ironically, as I pulled into the shop, guess what? Check engine light stayed on. So let's see. I don't want to see this, but I need to get to it to back out of it. Okay. Okay, so I had stored codes. Interesting. So I drove it hard enough to actually make it set the codes. Crankshaft pressure sensor circuit high. Oh, you know why? Because I got that hose disconnected, that's why. Right, so I'm not too worried about that. I mean, I'm going to connect it all back up when I go back together. For the road test, it's not going to hurt anything. All right. Remember that hose that goes to the valve cover? It's disconnected still. And I got the connector off of that, but I'm going to clear all of this out regardless. So, all right. So let's see what we're going to do here. All right, so we're back at the shop, and today is actually Monday. We spoke to the customer, and the customer decided that he wanted to put all 6 coils in. So we're putting Motorcraft coils in. He had already replaced, like I said, 6 coils. However, you never know. It could be a batch of bad coils, so you may go down the road and get another one going bad or another one going bad, something like that. So it's like, may as well put them all in right now. So that's what we're going to do. So I got a set of 6 of these Motorcraft coils. We have to wait for them to come in. They just came in. So I'm going to do that now. I know some of you may comment about the tube that I left off with the connector I left off, but I only went up the road. So it had no effect on anything just for what I was testing, because I still had to put the cover back on and everything else. So I wasn't too worried about it. And just in case I had to swap coils, I didn't feel like taking that tube on and off and on and off. It's not like it spit out any fluids or anything, any oil or whatnot. I wasn't too concerned about it. I knew it wouldn't. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there and put that behind me, so in case somebody asks or says something, just it's there. All right, so let me get you set up on a tripod and you can watch me swap over these coils. All right, so now everything's prepped here. Hopefully, hold on one second. Just wanted to make sure that the recording was working the way it was supposed to, or the mic was working the way it was supposed to. All right, so what I'm going to do is, like I said, unfortunately, I may shake the camera because I have the camera sitting on top of the airbox. I think I mentioned that the other day. My battery's almost dead. We're just going to do one side of, dang it, dropped it. Hold on a second, let me just get a magnet so I can pick that one up. Go right there. And that's a great example of why you don't leave any like open holes, like intake manifolds or anything like that, because you can inadvertently drop, a bolt down inside. So if you have an intake open, or a spark plug hole open, make sure you plug it up with something so you don't accidentally create an issue. So I'm going to give all of these back to the customer so he can return them. So in case you're wondering, these are Motorcraft HL3 Zebra-12029-D as in dog. What I will do too is I'll mark the one coil that was the problem coil. So this way he knows which is which. Just in case. All right. So I'll put it down inside and push it down to seat it. Then we can connect. I know you probably can't see me connecting the connector. And usually every time I connect the connector, I try popping the actual connector itself off to see if or to make sure that it's actually seated. Because sometimes you'll get it to where you think the connector's seated, but it really isn't. And you don't want it to accidentally wiggle off or vibrate off while going down the road, because that creates a whole nother world of problems. Like I said, my battery's almost dead, but that's okay. We're just going with small bolt into brass fitting, or brass insert that's threaded into, or that's pressed into, or molded into, I should say, the plastic valve cover. So there, that's connected. That's connected. So now let's move on to the other side. Take these out of the way. And then let me actually mark that one coil first so I don't accidentally mix it up with the other ones. So let's see. I used to have a silver Sharpie here somewhere. Where the heck is it? Here's my silver Sharpie. So I'm just going to put the universal NG on it. I'll show you when I'm done. NG. Okay. Now, same thing on this side. All you're going to do is release the lock and take the connector off. This side has the high pressure pump here. Hopefully you can see that, because this is direct injected. So this has what they call a high pressure pump. Takes a low pressure into it, and there's actually a mechanical cam. There's a camshaft in the motor and like a lifter that actually pushes up on this multiple times to create the high pressure. All right. We pop the coil out. There you see, I wrote NG right on it. So we know that that's the bad one. Bad coil. All right. Come on. There we go. Didn't want to release too easy. Now we're just opening up the bag. And these come pre-lubricated or whatever with like their own anti-seize, dielectric grease type stuff to help keep the actual coil from gluing itself onto the spark plug. I'll show you that in a second. Just opening up the bags right now. I know you can't see me, but you can hear me. But inside, you see that? The greenish colored stuff? That's Ford's own dielectric grease. All right, so let's get these in place now. That's in. Connector on. Lock in place. And then, like I said, I always tug on the connector to make sure that it is fully seated. Because every once in a while, you'll get it to where it pops off, and it's like, huh, that wasn't good. Same there. And then the last one here. All right. I'd always start these screws by hand. I see people lay them down and then, like lay them in the hole and they think they're starting, and then they go and whack them in with a gun or, electric ratchet, like what I'm doing, but they didn't start it. So then they wind up cross-threading it, and then it rips that brass fitting right out of the plastic valve cover. I've seen it all too often. So I like to start them with my fingers, make sure that they're actually going in. All right. Yeah, same thing, tighten. Okay. As you saw, I didn't go nuts tightening anything. There's no need to. And everything else is good. I didn't disconnect anything else. So now we can put the engine cover back on, and then we'll be ready for a road test. Okay, so now let's get those two little 10mm nuts back down there. My fingers don't work as well as they used to, that's for sure. There we go. All right, so everything's on. Let's tighten those two up. Same thing, you don't have to go nuts tightening them. Just a little beyond snug and you're good. All right, let's go get the scanner and let's take this thing for a road test. All right, we got all the codes cleared out of it. We're on a road test and see what happens. Didn't take too long before, but then again, it was fully warmed up by the time I got to it the last time, or the first time, which was the last time. You know what I mean? But it was fully warmed up, so I'm going to take it for a decent little ride, make sure everything's good. And then we'll continue. All right, so just got back from the road test. Runs absolutely excellent. And let's just see. Let's go with the scanner here. And yes, went to the monitors, and the Misfire monitor test is complete. So we're good there. This is really a good running truck. It really is. So, Joshua, thank you for entrusting me with your truck. So yeah, everything's all set here. Very happy with the way this runs, and we're going to be all good to go. So, all right. Hopefully you got something out of that video. If you did, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.